Hello, welcome back to my new video, and today in this video you will learn how to create a website step by step using HTML and CSS. Okay, in this website we have a different section. Here we will have our logo, then we will design the menu section, which also has some over effects, then also the home link is active. Then also below the menu section we will have some information. Then finally in this video we will be able to create two buttons, whereby also we will include some hover effects. So without wasting much time, let's dive in and create this website. So first we will have to create our project folder. So let's name our project folder as reshape. Then we will have to open this project folder using Visual Studio Code. Then once it opens, we will have to create two files. So one, we will call it index.html. Then we will create another file so that it can include our CSS code. So we will name the other file as reshape.css. Then we will have to write our code in our index.html file. So here we will use HTML version 5. Then let's include our web title. So the title of the website will be reshape website design using with HTML and CSS. Then we have to link our CSS file to our HTML file as link. So the name of the file is reshape.css. Okay, sorry. Then in our body section we have to include the main section, whereby we will define the different section, then the navigation section, the information section, and then we will have the two buttons. So we will name the section which will include all those information as main. So in our main, this is where all the information will be included. So let's add some CSS code for this section. So before we do anything, because we're going to use Google Fonts, so let's first add the Google Fonts in the CSS code for Google Fonts in our file. So we will use a font by the name this one, Great Vibes. So here we have to select the style, then we will use the import version. So copy the code, then we paste it in our CSS file. So after here, then we have to define some of variables that we are going to use it in our code. So root, let's give the name of the variable, and these are the variables that will hold the colors that we're going to use in our project. So we will name the first variable as primary color, and we're going to give it a code of 44DFC4. Then we will have another variable holding white color, we're going to give it a code of, and then we will have another variable holding dark color, and we'll give it a code of 596261. Then we have to define other code that will be going to be used for our website. So we will give it we'll give our website a default margin of 0. We'll give it a default padding of 0. Then for text decoration we will set it to none. Then for list style also we'll set it to none. So now we have to define the code for our main section now. So in our main section we will set the width to 100%. Then we will also set the height to 100. Then as you have seen, we have I have used a background image. So in my desktop I have an image here, so I will drag the image and drop it in our project folder. So this is the image that we're going to use in our project. So to add this background image to our website, we will use background image. Then also we have to define the linear gradient. So linear gradient, let's give it RGB 0.85. Then RGB 0.85. Then also we have to define now, we have now to attach the background image by using URL. Then we give the name of the background image, which is background.jpg. So now if you try to view the web page in a browser, then okay, I think there is something that is not working very well. So okay, we have to include comma here. Okay, there is another problem somewhere. Okay, let's set okay, I have misspelled by the word background, sorry. So it is background.jpg. So if you try to load the page, this is how the web page now is looking like. But now we can customize so that you can have a better appearance of the web page. So here we have to define the background size of that image. So we say background size. So the background size will set it as cover. Then we have to define also the background position, the image. So the background position of the image, let's set it at center. So I think now if you try to view it on the browser, now this is how our web page is now looking. It's looking very nice. So now after we have finished setting that section, we have now to include our navigation section. So we will define our navigation section as, we will give it a class of navbar. Then within the navbar we will have two sections, one for the logo and the other one for the menu items. So first let's add the logo, so that we will give a class of logo. Then we will use a h1 anchor h1 tag. So here we have to define our logo. We'll define our logo. So our logo will be reshape. So we'll type the word reshape. Then we will include a span. In the span section, we'll include dash, then shape, the full stop. Now if you try to view the web page, now this is how our logo is looking like. Then we have to add custom or we have to add some CSS code, so that we can customize or we can design this logo so that at least it's having a better look than this one. So we'll go to our CSS file. Then in our CSS file, what we will do first, because we have this navbar section, so we will first define some code for this section before we redesign our logo. So in the navbar section, we will define it, or we'll give it a width of maybe let's say 90, a width of 90%. Then let's define a margin of, let's say, auto. Then a padding. Let's give a padding of maybe the top and the bottom 2 rem. Then for the left and the right side, let's say 0 rem. So then, because we'll have two sections in this area, logo and the menu item, we have to separate the two items. So the logo and the menu item. So we will use to separate them. We will use display. Here we will display flex. Use a display flex. Then we will have to align the items at the center. Then we have also to justify the content by saying we should have a space in between the two components. So if now we try to view our, so this is how it look like, but I think we should at least push our logo a little bit further from the left side. So I think here we have to let's give this width let's say 85%. So I think that is much better. So from there, I think also we can let adjust this one to be 2.2 rem. Okay, this is how it look like. So after there, now we can now define some CSS code for our logo section. So our logo section, we will give it a default color of white color. Then let's define the cursor behavior by default to be pointer. Then now in our logo section we have defined the span section. So the span section, we can also give it a CSS code as follows. So logo, then span. So here let's give it a color of, here we have to use the primary color. Then a font weight of around let's say a font weight of 800. Then we have to define the font family. So for the font family, since we have used the Great Vibes as our font in this website, we just go to this part, just copy this code and paste it here. So now I think our logo has a better look than the previous one. Okay, so this is our logo which we have redesigned it. So now we will add our menu item on this other side. So let's go back to our HTML code. So here in our HTML code, we will define our our menu item in an ordered list. Then this unordered list, we have to define a class in it. So let's give it a class of nav bar nav. Then we will in between the nav bar, the unordered list, we will have the list item. So list item, and within the list item, I think we will have also you can define a class name here as nav item, okay. And I think we'll have menu items around. We will have 4 of them. Yeah, we will have 4 of them. So now we have the menu items. So in the menu items, let's use an anchor tag. So here we can say, we can define our anchor tag as follows. Sorry. We also have a href. Sorry. Here we have an anchor tag with a class. We can include a class here. Give it a nav link. So this one, you can copy this one and paste in each and every list. So the first menu will be home. Then we can define our about us section menu. Then we will have the service menu. Project. Also we can include another menu by the name get a code. Okay, so now we have defined our menu item, and this is how they look like. So we have also to make them to align them horizontal, also to change the color, the menu item, and add some other functionality to them. So we will go back to our CSS file. So in our CSS file, we have first we can define how the item menu item will look like. So we can say nav bar we can display them in line block, then give them a margin of 0 and 1 and 3, then give them a position of relatively. So after that, we can now define how the anchor tag within the list tag will look like. So we will say nav bar let's define the color. So the default color that you can give them here, you can just use the normal white color. Then we can also define the font size. We can give it a font size of 1.3. Then we can also define the font weight, which you can let's give it around 800. So now I think okay, now the menu items are looking better than they were before. So now we can add the hover effect and maybe making this one to be active, and then also we make this one look like a button with some other customized functionality. So for that we'll go back. For example, first we'll add the hover effect to the menu item, which we will say navbar. Yeah, so when you hover, that'll change the color from white now to our primary color. Then so now it's working. So now let's change this one. Okay, let's change this one to be active by default. For that we have to go back to our index file. Then we can add another class here. We call it active. We can add another class there. We call it active. Then from there we can okay, this class, rather than adding it here, we can I think we can add it here, so that it will be simpler if we come to adding that functionality. So I think we'll just add it above this code, line of code. So here we will just say navbar dot nav then dot active dot navlink. So with this line of code, we can I think we have achieved our objective. So now we have to make this one to look like a button. Then we give it also another hover effect. So for that we have to give that anchor tag a different class than the one that we have used. Rather than navlink, let's use a class like get code. Then we use this one, so get code. So with this one, now we can define the CSS Corner for that menu item. So we will give it a color, default color of, let's use our white color. Then we can give it a background color, background color. Let's say a background color. Let's give it our primary color. Then the border color. For the border color, we have to give it let's say let's be transparent. Then we have to also define the padding of, because we want to make it to look like a button, so we have to define the padding, the top and the bottom, then the left and the right hand side. So for the top and the bottom, we can give it 0.5 then for the left and the right one we can give it 1.5 rem. Then I think also we can define the border radius. So for the border radius of this our menu item that look like a button, let's give it 1.3 rem. So I think now we have a better okay. Now we have a better menu item which look like a button, but let's customize the hover effect so that it look nice. So for the hover effect, so we will have to say get code over. So let's maintain the color of that text to be white. And also let's make the background color to be dark. Then for the border color, let's use the primary color. So I think now it's looking better. Okay, let's change the color of the text to remain white. I think you have had the code, but we can for it to work, it has been overwritten by, so for it to work well, it has been overwritten by this code. So for it to work well, we have to include here important. So I think now it's working. Okay, it's working fine. So we have designed our core, we have designed our core, our logo. We have also created our menu items, which are working fine. So now we have to add this section, which have some text. Then after there, we will add the button. So to add the information in that section, we will have to define. We have to define another section. So this was our navigation section. So now we have to define our other section. We can call this section also our information section. Okay, information section. So here we will have to define a div. So in this section we can give the div a class name of info section. Then within the info section we will have the first section of the information, which we will use h2 tag, and here we will define some information and say it giving like to your dream home. So now this is how our text look like. So but we want this text to come at the center of this home page. So we have to define some CSS code so that we can move it from the left side to the center, and also we define some padding on the top and also on the bottom side. So with that we'll come to our CSS file. So here first, because we have defined another section here, so we have to give it a code, some CSS code first before we go any further. So we let's define the width of this section to be 100%. Let's give it a position of let's say it's be absolute. Then the top section, let's define it to be 50%. Then we have also to move the text from the left side to the center, so we can say transform, then translate 50%. Then we also want to do what? We want to change the color of the text to be white. So the color, let's change the color to be white. So now this is how they look like. So we want this text to be at the center, so we can say align text, align center. Okay, I think now it's looking better. Now we have to increase at least the font of this text, and also I have misspelled the word dream, so we can change it here. So to be a dream. Then now let's define the CSS code for this line of information. So we have used h2. So here we will say info section h2. Then let's say the font size, because we want to change the size of that text. Let's define it to be 5 rem. And also the margin top, let's give it margin top, let's give it 5 rand. Then also I think we can transform you can make the text you can change the text to uppercase. So here we will use text transform uppercase. So okay, this is how the text is looking like. I think it's much bigger, so you can change let's reduce this one to a rem of 4, so at least then we have let's break this information from here to have 2 lines, so we come to our let's come to our HTML code. In our HTML code we'll define a break here, we'll define a break here, and also I want to give the word home another customization, so let's include a span here and have our word home within the span. So this is how our information is looking like. So now let's change this one to this color and also the font size of this one. So to change the color and the font size and maybe the font family, we'll have to say info section h2 span color. So here we will use our primary color. Then for the fonts, you have to change the font family. So we will change the font family to great vibes cursive. Then after there, I think also rather than to be in uppercase like the other text, we can change it to be capitalized, text transform, but it should be capitalized. So I think now it's looking okay. Now it's looking nicer than it was before. So now let's add the other section of information below it. So to add the other information below it, we have to come to this file, and this information we will include it in p tag, and the information that we will include here is y over 1 million plus customers are chosen as. So okay, the word chosen. So this is our other information. So we have to also to include the CSS code for that section. So we will have to define, we say information, then our p tag, then we have to give it a margin, how it will appear. So from the top of the other title of the information, we'll say we'll give a margin of for the top and bottom we give a margin of 1.3 rand. Then for the left and right, just left it at a margin of 0. Then let's give it a font weight of maybe 100. Then let's give it a line height of 1 rand. Line height of 1 rand. Then the font size, let's give it a font size of let's make it 5 rand. So this is how it look like, but I think we can increase the line height. Let's increase the line height. Let's make it 0.6. So I think now it's looking better. Okay, so now I think also we can change the color of this one. Can change the color of this one and make it bolder. You can make the to look to have the same color like this one, and maybe to make it bolder. So to do that, we have to come to our HTML file, and let's define a span here. Let's define a span and include this one so that we can customize it. So because we have it in a span, now we can define some code for that information. So we say information section, then p, then span. So here, because we want it to be bolder, we can start by defining the font weight to be, let's make it 700. Then we can also define a font size which is higher than the one that we have used in the p tag, which we can use 1.9 rem. Then also we can change the color from white to our primal color. So with that, I think right now it's looking better than before. Yeah, it's looking better than before, but I think now let's reduce the font size to be like 17 there, and also this one, let's make it like 500. Okay, I think that is much better. So finally, we have to include the two buttons below this information. So with that, we will go back again to our HTML file. So here we have to define another div so that it can hold the two buttons. So here is a button section. So for the button section, we have to include a div to hold the two buttons. So we'll make two buttons. So we'll give them a class of btn, and they are true. So the first one, we will call it view project, and the second one, we will name it our services. So now we have our two buttons. These are our two buttons. So we have to define some CSS code so that we can have a better look than this one. So we'll go back to our sorry, this is our button. So we can do this. We can do this. Sorry. We can do this. These are buttons, not just this. So they are buttons. Let's give them a class of btn, and they are two. The first one has a view project, and also we have our services. So at least now we have the two buttons. So now let's define some CSS code so that they have a much better look. So here we will use the class btn. So we have to define the width. So let's say the width of those, let's give them 15 rem, the width. So I think that is much better. Then we have also to define the padding. So the padding from the bottom and top, let's make it 9 rem. Then for the left and the right side, leave it at 0. Then I think, okay, make it, I think let's make it at just 1. Okay, I think now they're much better. One. Then let's say another thing that we can add there is a border radius. For the border radius, you can say border radius. Let's give it 1.6 rem. Then background, for the background, let's define it to be transparent. Then we have also to define the color of the text, that give it white. And then also we need to define the default cursor behavior as a pointer when you move on it. Also we can add a border. So let's add a border of 0.1 rem. Solid. Let's add our primary color. Then with that, I think that okay. Now they're looking much better. But also we have to redefine our margin so that we can have some space here. So we can say margin for the top and bottom. Let's give it 1.3 rem. Then for the left and right, let's say 0.6 rem. So I think now they are looking better. But we can reduce. Let's reduce this one to be 0.9. And also I think we can reduce this one to 14. Okay, so I think now they are looking very nice. So we can add the hover effect on these two buttons. So to add the hover effects, we can go back to our shape file, CSS file. So I think here first we need to define span before the text for the two buttons. So span, and also here we have to add span. So after adding span, then we can now define some CSS code for the span. So we can say .ptn span. So let's start with the width. Let's remain at 0%. Then we can also define the height. Let's say the height will remain at 100%. Then we can also define the border radius to remain at 1.6 also. We can also define this our span will just remain on the left side, it just remain on the 0 position, and also for the bottom so it should remain at 0 position. And also we have to define the background color. So for the background color, we shall give it the primary color. Then also we have to define our also we have to define the positioning of this span as absolute. So with that, I think that is enough. So we can now add the hover effect to this button by saying btn hover effect span. So when we hover on that button, then we can change the width from 0 to 100%. But also I think that is enough. Sorry for that. So to remove this error, let's go back to our CSS file. So in our CSS file, we will need to I think here we'll have to define the positioning of this button btn as relative. I think now that error has been gone. Also, we have to say let's say overflow, it should be hidden. Okay, so we have to define a transition so that the over effect can be from left to right. So for that, we shall define the transition. Let's define the transition 0.5 seconds. I think now it's working much better. So we can also for better result, let's add a z index to be -1. Okay, I think now it's working better, but I think the border of the button, I think we need to remove them during the hovering. So let's go back to our code and say btn hover. So on hover, border, the border should be none. So I think now it's working fine. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for another videos like this. Bye.